Hello, we're going to talk about blocks today. Before looking at the blocks specifically, just a word about Moodle in general. Moodle, like any LMS, but let's not forget that Moodle is the king of them all, um, can be considered a virtual learning environment, a digital classroom, or an online educational container in its most simplistic terms. It's a place where you can put all your resources and activities. Obviously, it's set up in such a way, it's been coded in such a way that it's facilitated for you, the instructor or the admin person, the course creator. You don't have to be a programmer in order to create your course on Moodle. It's all made simple for you. Basically, just a click and an element is added. Look, for example, adding an activity resource. A click here and you will get a list of options. Now, another area of your Moodle course, which allows you to pick and choose from a whole bunch of selections, is the block system. Now, when they call it block, we might want to call it plugin. It's basically a collection of plugins and can be found here. It's on the right-hand side. It's default closed. You can open it up, the panel, and right up at the top, you get the addition option. So if I click on it, I get a list of possible options for those plugins. Now, I've already set up a few. I've added a few to my block panel just so that we can actually visualize them, because the list of titles doesn't tell us an awful lot. And let me just go through them very quickly with just a word or two about the rationale behind using them. Now, I've got a completion progress bar because I'm a great believer in allowing students to visualize the progress that they're making. In particular, when a course is long and complicated, when you hit a bump in the road, when you're having a tough period, it can sometimes feel a little bit endless, and you can sometimes lose sight of the fact that you are actually making progress. This allows you to visualize just where you are and what you've done in your course, and I think that's very reassuring. And so the rationale behind that is almost a psychological one, assisting students in seeing what they've accomplished so far and what remains to be done. The activities block is a nice one if you want to group together types of activities which are featured in your course. Now, this would allow, especially again, if you're doing something fairly long and complicated, a student, even in good faith, can skip a necessary activity or test or something. They could just forget that they missed out something. So a way for them to double check, and for you, the course creator, to visualize altogether the let's just look at quizzes. See if we've got what you've done, what you've set up under that. Oh, see, well, there you go. I'm supposed to have a little quiz at the end of my 5 sections, and in reality, I've only done the one. So just out of, I don't know, an organizational point of view, this is a way of you double checking that you've got all the elements in that category in place. And for your students, once they're doing the course, to double check that they've done, for example, all the interactive content activities, or they've done all the diary entries that are required for them. If you're doing an EFL course or a writing course, or I guess any kind of course, this might turn out to be useful. Without having to leave the site, your students have, and you indeed have the option of checking spelling and definitions in a little handy dictionary on the side. Latest announcements, that can be useful if your course is not purely asynchronous in particular. So you might want to add in live sessions here, you might want to add in reminders about upcoming tests, you might want to do all sorts of things. I think a lively latest announcement section can contribute to a feeling of the course actually being active and there being a teacher present behind the scenes, as it were. Recent activity, This is separate from the announcements. The announcements, you, the educator or the course designer, or the admin person might be making. Recent activity, it does this automatically. It tracks what's going on. But the end result might be similar to latest announcements in terms of psychological impact, let's call it that. Sounds a bit highfalutin, but I do believe that if you have a block like either of these two, they do contribute to a sensation that your course is live. You can see things going on. You're seeing things that were posted yesterday or today or a couple of days ago. If the recent activity dates back to 3 months ago, then it is going to give the impression that the course is kind of inactive or that there's no instructor actively present. Sharing cart we looked at in a previous video, it is just super useful. It allows you to set up elements common across all the sections of your course and just to quickly copy and paste them into the different sections. So you set up one as a kind of template and you quickly copy and paste them into all the other sections as required. Course checker, this is for you more than your student. This is just to double check that there are no errors behind the scenes. These are quite technical or technological problems that the system is flagging. There's something going wrong here, there's something going wrong with my label subheadings. I need to check them out. The actual smooth running of the course from an implementation point of view, I think it has to be carried out in person. You need somebody piloting, you're doing a test run of your course to be really, really sure. Okay, the level up block, I automatically, through algorithms, will calculate activity levels. So it's calculating a activity on forums, it's calculating the opening of resources and so on and so forth. It turns it into numbers and allows students and you to see how active they are on the course. Table of contents, this can be useful. Now, this is a repetition, if you like, of what you've got across your tabs. So why bother? Well, I think maybe it might be useful if each section, and that's not a good one, that section is pretty short, so it's very easy to scroll up and down, and so you're getting the repetition, not awfully useful. If I go into a section which is more highly populated, like my introduction, yet the scrolling down is a bit more lengthy, and I may not even have finished. So by the time you get to the bottom, if you have to scroll up and down a lot, that's quite a long process. So if you wanted to jump about from section to section, and each section is particularly lengthy and requires a lot of scrolling, then the contents panel, where is it? There we are, will facilitate navigation. Badges, if you've set up a badge system whereby you're awarding badges for various achievements, and these might just be as simple as finishing a section or finishing a test or whatever, these are handy. Do these come under the heading of gamification? Yeah, maybe a bit. In reality, well, I'm not a huge fan of gamification, but I would make a distinction between awarding badges and gamifying learning processes. The badges, a bit like your progress bar up at the top, serve a much more useful function, I think, in terms of allowing your students to check off achievements and progress. So if I get the badge for completing a section, even though I'm not a kid, the awarding of the badge does really drive home the fact that I've finished a section, I've finished a test, I'm making my way through the course successfully. So it's maybe more psychological than anything else, but I think it's helpful. Upcoming events, I think we already talked about that. Accessibility review, this is important. It's disabled at the moment because the course has not been finished, but when I finished, I would activate accessibility review just to ensure that learners who have accessibility issues are going to find every part of my course, for example, that my visuals are described verbally and so on and so forth, so that they're not having issues with getting to and using all parts of my course. Online users, I'm going to suggest this is a good one to keep in for the same reason that I offered up for upcoming events and latest activity. It's nice to see a bit of movement, live movement of human beings on the course site. And so if you're seeing that there are other, from a student's point of view, you're seeing that your classmates are online, or some of your classmates are online at any given time, even if they're coming and going, it gives a sense of the course being active, of other people being out there. If you see your instructor flashing on and off, coming and going, it really drives home the sensation that your course, that your course instructor, your teacher, is an active presence on your course. If you're the instructor, seeing your students coming and going is going to be reassuring. If you see a lack of activity here, you might have a problem to solve. The last one that I popped in here that's not been set up, just to remind me to mention it as a possible useful one, course completion status. If you have set up completion criteria, this will track and help your student visualize the various stages of course completion. We're back to progress bars and badges. It helps visualize where you are, how you're doing, and how far you still have to go to reach the end. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful to you. Bye bye.